All right, 187. So I'm going to start with something that Lance is afraid is a digression, but really within 45 seconds it will lead to arguing, which is what you want in this show. Um, Carol and I started watching the new season of The Crown, which is the dramatized version of Queen Elizabeth's reign and her personal life. Um, and this season, I'm finding particularly painful, and I'm yelling at the TV because it's the Princess Di season, and my wife's asking me, "Why are you so mad at the TV?" And I'm like, I guess it's because we get to see the details of a tragedy that you and I are old enough to have seen play out in real time, via People magazine and on TV. And it was fucking, I mean, it was just one person dying. And also, it fucked up the monarchy. So, I mean, the tragedy is limited, but still, it was fucking sad. And it's brutal to watch it play out with the behind the scenes stuff and how twatty Queen Elizabeth was, and kind of the rest of the royals, and what a twit Prince Charles was. And but still, my wife is asking me, "Why are you getting so pissed?" And it seems avoidable. Like most TV drama is fucking avoidable if the characters would just tell each other what's going on, share information. Um, but then the other thing that struck me was that it's also annoying because we too right now our government is run by yet another family that's rich and clueless. And now we can commence with the arguing.
Uh,
Oh,
okay.
wait,
Well,
one
in the
thing that just happened that you're probably not aware of. An hour ago, an hour and 15 minutes ago, our president, Trump, went on Twitter and tweeted in all caps, "I won the election." And then within several minutes, Twitter added a little note at the bottom saying that most I don't know, public, media and agent, most sources disagree with this statement.
okay. Well, I think he did win the election. And actually, I think he won it in a landslide. And the more that uh, the more that comes out, the more shocking the whole thing is. Um, According to his attorneys, who I've been listening to all week, um, there are so many different avenues where they took votes from him, where the Biden team was able to, the Democrats were able to steal votes. That, I mean, I was trying to figure out where to begin tonight to say all the different sneaky things they did. Um, but I'll start with something that we can both agree on because the facts aren't in dispute. Um, we went over this last week, and I'll try to make it myself more clear. And uh, the in the state of Pennsylvania, 2 days before the election, they changed the rules of the election. There was one judge in the Pennsylvania Supreme Court that took it upon, I believe, herself to say that you could keep um, you could keep counting ballots after the third if they were postmarked on the third for many days. Now, in other states and up until then, what had to happen was this: if the ballot came in on the 3rd, it was a legal ballot. It was a legal vote. But if it came in afterwards, on the 4th or the 5th or the 6th, it had to be thrown out. Now, those are the facts. There's nothing to dispute about that. I mean, the the problem is that according to the United States Constitution, it is only the legislature that has the right to change the way that votes come in, the way the election is held. And so this judge usurped authority that she didn't have. Now, unfortunately, 650,000 votes in Pennsylvania came in after the 3rd. They came in on the 4th, the 5th, the 6th, and your team will say that they were all legal votes. But one of the other things that was changed was that even if they weren't postmarked, the judge said they still had to be counted. And even if the signatures didn't match, they still had to be counted. Now, I believe it's Order 77. I remember seeing there's an actual order where she said all this.
Well,
so
we're going to have to take a break and really look at it, because my understanding of it is not that, and we do want to agree on we just need to check it at some point.
Well,
but I'll say what my understanding is, and then we'll take a break.
Well, okay. We need to agree on the facts.
Yeah.
We can say that it was good that she did that because it stopped racism and saved us from global warming or something. But that's a separate issue. Did she actually do this? And so, what is it that you don't? Do you want to look this up, or do you want to say what it is that you don't agree with?
I'll tell you what my understanding is, but we may be talking about two different things. Now, your side has filed a bunch of lawsuits. I counted 38 lawsuits in various states across the country. And most of these lawsuits, you guys don't get a favorable verdict, but you did get a favorable verdict with one suit in Pennsylvania. And the issue there was healing defective ballots.
Yeah.
The deal is if somebody turns in a ballot in some in some states, if there's something wrong with the ballot, like the signature doesn't match or it wasn't signed, then you have a certain amount of time. The precinct can call you up or somehow notify you and say, we can't accept your ballot as is, but you can come fix it. You can show us ID, or you can come show us that the signature we didn't like is actually your signature. Whatever, you can do what they call healing it.
You can cure it.
And a judge said, due to the COVID or whatever, that people would have like 3 days after election day to come in and fix their ballots.
Okay.
And you guys went to court on that and said, no, the legislature didn't say that. A judge said it. Mm-hmm. And so these ballots have to be disallowed. They were already kept separate. And I tried to track down how many ballots this actually applied to. And I couldn't, the one number that I saw was 2,100 potentially could have been healed or whatever, but I couldn't pin that number down. But anyway, according to the most complete count, Biden won Pennsylvania by 65,000 votes. And even if all 2,100 ballots that they were talking about were thrown out, which I don't think they were. I don't think they were ever allowed. They were kept separate because they were in dispute. So they weren't throwing them out wouldn't subtract anything from the 65,000 because they were never added in. But even if somehow they were and were taken out, that's only 3% of Biden's lead.
Hey,
So,
hang on for 1 second. Hang on.
yep.
Don't say, cut this out, cut this out. Somebody's trying to talk to me.
Okay. All right.
What? We're filming. All right. Are you filming, director?
Do you need to unfilm it? Do we need to
I,
stop?
well, you know what? We can stop if Ralph.
Well,
I
why
mean, we
don't we?
can
Why
keep
don't
going.
this? Well,
Ralph,
let's
can
make
you
this the
stop?
break. I'll go look up. I'll make this
All
the
right.
break. I'll go
Okay.
look
All
up
right.
the pencil.
Okay.
All right, we had to take a break, so I went and read about what's going on in Pennsylvania, and there are two cases going on. One is the one case that the Republicans in the whole country have won, and it's about curing. I thought it was healing, but it's curing defective ballots. And the legislature, who makes the rules, not judges in elections, according to what you're saying, had already established that you have 6 days to fix it. A judge said no, you should have 3 extra days beyond the 6 days. And the Republicans went to court and they threw out the judge's ruling. But the number of ballots that were fixed or cured uh, after 6 days had passed after the election, and those extra 3 days, there were very few of them. So it doesn't really affect anything. I looked it up, and I guess Biden is currently ahead by 69,000 votes. Then the other thing that's going on is that a judge had said that you should have 3 extra days after the election to get mail-in ballots in if they were postmarked on or before November 3rd or something. And that thing, the state Supreme Court ruled in favor of the 3 extra days because of the fucked up post office, because of COVID and every other thing. Then it went to the Supreme Court that tied 4-4 on the lower court's ruling. And in the event of a tie, the lower court's ruling stands, but the Republicans are appealing. And I believe that's where it currently stands.
Okay.
Hold on. One
So,
more thing is, I think 1.1 mail-in million ballots were received in Pennsylvania. So if people are still saying that won't affect the outcome of the election, even if those ballots that showed up after November 3rd are thrown out. But I don't know.
well, I don't know why that wouldn't affect that because
There weren't enough of them.
1.1 million?
1.1 million, I think, mail-in ballots total were received in
Right,
Pennsylvania.
but
That
how
includes
many?
that includes the ones that were received on or before election day, and there's nothing being challenged about those.
Right.
You have the ones that are received, after election day that might be in question, but some of those would be for Biden, some of those would be for Trump, and apparently the gap between them is such that it won't, it might cut into Biden's lead a little bit, but not enough to flip the state.
Well, where did you read that?
I don't know. I looked at 3 or 4 articles.
Well, the reason I say that is because according to Trump's lawyers, there were 640,000 mail-in ballots that showed up in Pennsylvania after Election Day, November 3rd. So if his lead is 69,000, that's 10 times the amount that would be necessary to change to flip Pennsylvania. Because what they're saying, what the Trump lawyers are arguing is this, that the Democrats got themselves a Democrat judge that um, managed to alter the election so that they could keep sending mail-in ballots in, um, keep counting them, not sending them in, keep counting them after the third. Even if, well, okay, it's I got to make this very, very clear. I didn't make it clear at all last week. The problem is that if it was mailed on the second before the election,
Mhm.
but um, it's it's okay if it gets counted on the fourth or fifth because it's nobody's fault. Happens all the time.
Okay.
The problem is that the Trump campaign is saying that these ballots didn't get there by the third. They got there on the fourth, fifth, and sixth. And so we're trying to get those thrown out. Even if they were postmarked on the third, we're saying they didn't get there by election day. So they're late. So they're late. So they have to be thrown out. And there's a precedent for that that's easy to understand. If you were trying to vote on election day and you got to the polls on November the 3rd at 8:30 and the polls close at 8, then you would be denied a vote. So what the Republicans are saying is, look, this ballot may have been mailed on the 3rd, maybe before the 3rd, but it may not have. And if it shows up on the 4th and gets added to the total, then it's no more, it's not fair to the person that got to the polls at 10 after 8. The other thing is these ballots don't have to be the signatures don't have to match. The other thing is that the envelopes that the ballots came in were supposed to have matching information with the information on the ballot. And
Yeah, you know what?
in thousands and thousands of these, the poll workers just threw out the outer ballot. So they can't verify the vote.
Yeah, so
The other thing
we're gonna
is
have
that,
at some point we're gonna have to take a break, and I'm gonna have to look up. I now thinking about it, I don't think that 1.1 million that I cited is right. I think it's a bigger number. So I'm gonna go. Well, next time we break, I'll go look try to
well,
see if we can get a.
look, all we're talking about is ballots that arrived at the polling place after midnight on the 3rd.
I
And,
know, but
and
like nobody but the Trump lawyers are saying that there are enough ballots that are in dispute to affect. So I'm gonna have to go look it up.
well, I don't know that you'll be able to find it because
But
even the
maybe
people in
there should be
Pennsylvania don't know.
someplace.
Well, what the Trump lawyers are saying is that 640,000 ballots should have been put aside because they may be thrown out. They may be illegal ballots.
Okay. Um,
Uh, Go
I'll,
ahead.
I'll look it up. You guys haven't been having.
But wait, but there's more. Just to give you two more things. According to Lindsey Graham and the Trump campaign, Lindsey Graham is a senator, and the Trump lawyers, 25,000 ballots were harvested from rest homes in Pennsylvania. Well, that's illegal. Pennsylvania doesn't allow ballot harvesting. So those 25,000 votes would be thrown out. They're illegal votes. Finally, there were two other issues: dead people, thousands of dead people. Exactly how many dead people, we don't know. But there are plenty of cases of dead people voting for Biden in every state. Finally, now this is a somewhat more it's a different issue, but according to the law in Pennsylvania, a Republican, a representative of both parties, has to oversee the counting of the ballots. And there is there are over 1,000 signed affidavits from Republicans who were forced to stand outside. They didn't get to review the ballots.
Yeah, but these weren't appointed poll watchers.
No, but they are. The Republican Party picks whoever they want. It's just they don't have to be appointed by Democrats. They are the representatives of the Republican Party. The Democrat approval people were there. They were allowed in. Now, according to the law, if you deliberately prevent one party from reviewing, then every vote after you threw that person out is invalid. It's illegal because for obvious reasons, if you've just kicked the Republican out, then you obviously have something to hide or whatever. No explanation's been given. And that means that you could and should be assumed to be changing the votes.
Well, I mean, that's not how it actually works, in that there was a lawsuit filed that Republican poll watchers or any poll watchers were limited to standing 15 feet away. And the GOP said, no, that's too far to really see what's going on. We want 6 feet away. And then there was some negotiation, and the suit and the legal action ended because the parties negotiated a distance that was mutually satisfactory.
Yeah, well, that's what your media is telling you, but I have seen films
No,
and listened
that's
to.
what when I read several articles, that's what the deal was.
That's
And
the agreed that, but that's
not
not.
currently an active legal action based
Yes, it
on.
is. Yes, it is. The according to the Trump lawyers, they're presenting affidavits to courts in all the states, including Pennsylvania, that their poll watchers were denied entrance into the building. That if not only were they not denied entrance were they not denied entrance, but they weren't even allowed to be 6 feet away or 15 feet or 20 feet. A lot of them were kept 60 feet away. So meaningful evaluation of the ballots was not given to the Republican poll watchers. And unfortunately, for all of these reasons, if any of these things are proven, according to the law, those ballots have to be thrown out. And it's a
Well, no,
lot more than
that's a
69,000.
ridiculous theory of the law. That's not how it works. The ballots all exist. Nobody's throwing away any ballots. So, I mean, at worst, then if say that by the luckiest chance that some judge, and you guys have had bad luck so far in court. You filed 38 lawsuits, and of the suits that have had a verdict in them, you've lost 18 and won one. And often with scornful language from the judge, even Republican judges, even judges appointed by Trump. And the deal is that the ballots exist. And so even if somebody said, yeah, you know what, there weren't enough people from both parties looking at the ballots, we're going to need a recount. It's not that the ballots get thrown out. It's that what happens in Georgia, which is there's currently a recount going on. And you guys, the Republicans, I mean, the language, now you don't like Wikipedia. You think it's liberal, even though it's, edited by, it's kind of a group effort, where people argue about what shouldn't. Anyway, there's an article on election lawsuits, and it lists all of them, and then it lists the outcomes of all of them, and it lists the what the judges have said in a lot of these. And so if you're really curious about the state of the lawsuits, Wikipedia is a good place to start. Now, if you find Wikipedia too liberal, then you can go on from there, and you can you know, but what my media tells me, and I trust my media because I've looked at a bunch of different sources, and they say that there is no challenge to the 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 voting and the vote counting that has a chance of overturning the vote. And the popular, now nobody wins in America by the popular vote margin, but it's a good indication. Right now, with 97% of all votes counted, Biden's lead is up to over 5.6 million in the popular vote, which is more than the popular vote um, victory in 4 out of the 5 previous elections. All elections held from the year 2000 on, only one election was there a bigger popular vote margin. And even like if by magic Pennsylvania was thrown out, um, Biden still has enough electoral votes. Um, so it looks like also it basically Biden's going to win the popular vote by about twice the margin that Hillary won the popular vote 4 years ago. Um, it looks like a durable victory. Um,
All right. Now, what your viewers have to understand is that when a judge finds um, electoral malfeasance, that is, when a judge finds that ballot representatives from the Republican Party are prevented from watching the votes being tabulated, he can do, if he wants to, he can throw out all votes after after the Republican poll people have been sent out. He can say that these votes are unreliable. They could have been made up right after you kicked the Republicans out. And so we have no reason to believe that these are real ballots. Um, we have now, you could argue, well, that's disenfranchising a million honest ballots. And I guess it could go from there up to the Supreme Court. But one of the things that judges have the ability to do is say, look, you didn't follow the rules. The rules are that the Republicans get to watch you, not stand 20 feet away. They get to watch you. You didn't follow the rules. You kept accepting ballots in the mail after the third. And that's not legal. Not that you kept counting them, but you kept getting them. You didn't follow the rules. The signatures didn't match on the front and the back of the ballot. All of these things, if you were running for mayor, they would just throw out those ballots. They'd say, look, you're obviously doing hinky things to win this election, so we can't trust any of these ballots. Now, the value of the ballot of the vote counts is because there are witnesses that saw, Republicans and Democrats, that saw people getting a ballot for Biden and re-entering it in the machine 8 times over and over again, different, maybe hundreds and hundreds of times. There's a witness, for example, that worked for Dominion machines. Dominion is the actual machine that counts the ballots. And she said that she actually went to her supervisor because she saw Democrats' names, but Biden ballots being stuffed into the machine over and over again, hundreds of times, so that it would look like one vote was 100 votes. There are now, if you count the votes, a ballot count hopefully will reveal that. So if you've got 700,000 people, but you've got 800,000 votes, a hand ballot count should reveal that, I hope. Um, anyway, this spokeswoman said that she saw, I believe it was either her or another witness who said that hundreds of ballots came in with the name Joe. Oh God, yeah. Okay, listen to this. After after Trump had a lead of 200,000 or 300,000 in Michigan and 700,000 in Pennsylvania, all of the states across the country in the states that were run by Democrats just stopped counting. There was a break of about an hour or two. All of the Republicans were told to leave. They said ballot counting has ended for the night. The Republicans left, and after they left, the Democrats went back in and they found, and huge boxes full of ballots were delivered in the middle of the night. And it turns out that all of these ballots were for Biden. And there are poll workers that have signed affidavits, hundreds of them, that are saying that
Really?
this is the famous middle of the night ballot dump. And they said two things. Number one, they would see ballots that had no names on them except for Joe Biden. So they would pick up a big cardboard box full of ballots, which is illegal. All ballots are by law are supposed to come in a strong box. And when they're taken out, they're supposed to be in a sealed envelope. And we have witnesses, hundreds of them, that are saying that they just brought them in cardboard boxes and dumped them on
When you say
tables.
hundreds, are these from like all 50 states or all battleground states or?
Yeah, mainly from various battleground states. And all of these people have signed affidavits, meaning that they're going to court. They will be presenting their story in court under penalty of perjury. And they're saying that they witnessed hundreds of
Right, can we take a
ballots
break and
being
verify
poured
that?
out.
Can we verify that? Because like my media tells me that there are no non-laughable claims like this.
Well,
And you would say
your media is
of course
lying to
your
you
media
because
tells you that because it's your
yeah,
media and your
right,
brainwash.
yeah,
So let's
that's
take a
right.
break. Let me
Rick,
verify the
Rick,
hundreds of
Rick,
affidavits.
Rick. Look, I'm going to tell you something. We've already taken one break,
Yeah.
and for very practical reasons, it's almost 11 o'clock. I want to tell you something. You would have to listen. I've probably listened to 10 hours of Trump lawyers. I listened to Giuliani, Sidney Powell, McEnany, and I literally have garnered this from 10 hours
Yeah,
of
but
listening.
the
And
Trump's lawyers, like two law firms hired by Trump, have now withdrawn, have now
yeah,
said,
and did you know that they were threatened by the Lincoln Project? Did you hear anything about that?
no, I just heard that they
Okay,
withdrew because they,
here's what the Lincoln Project did to Trump's attorneys.
okay.
They went on Twitter and they said these are the attorneys trying to represent Trump. This is where their homes are, where their families are. These are their clients.
Okay, so
This is where
so
their
hold
kids
on.
go to
So like
school.
some of that is patently bullshit because
No, they were
no,
threatened.
no, hold on. Fucking because I follow everybody in the Lincoln Project. For the Lincoln Project is Republicans who have become anti-Trump.
Mhm.
And I love them. Maybe I'm secretly a Republican. You like to say that I am. But I love the Lincoln Project people perhaps more than anybody else on political Twitter. Um, and what you're talking about now, it makes sense that they would name the clients of these law firms. But when you say, here's their houses, here's their addresses, here's their families, that's doxing.
Right,
And
that's what they
there's
did.
no way in hell that the Lincoln Project, which is legit political fucking operatives, people who've been in the business of political messaging, usually for the Republicans for 30 years, that they
Oh, they're
would dox.
fine people, fine,
They
marvelous,
are fine
wonderful,
people.
fine human
One guy
beings.
is
Yes, and I
one guy
believe
is
that. Yeah, I understand. Rick, listen, we have to be practical. Do you
that they're
understand?
not going to dox
Listen,
people. When you say they're
Rick,
doxing people, you're full of
they
shit.
are. Okay, Rick, here's the problem we're going to have now, and I anticipated this. So I need to get this clear, okay?
Mm-hmm.
You made a series of statements, none of which I agreed with, but I
Okay.
listened. I'm going to make a series of statements that you're going to say, that's total bullshit, okay? But we don't have time in the remaining 45 minutes of this show for you to check every statement I make.
I'm just
Not
going to
because
check.
it's,
I'm just going to
no,
Google. It'll take 2 minutes. I'm not even going to go upstairs.
oh,
I'm going to Google
which,
here.
okay, here's what you can do. Lincoln Project doxes Trump attorneys. Look
Okay, I'll
that up.
do that. I'll do a couple of. All right,
No,
director,
no,
can
no,
you give
don't
us a
take a half
5 minute
hour.
break?
Okay,
Just give us a 5 fucking minute break. Here we go, director. Okay, so I read up on the Lincoln Project and doxing, and when you the needle is halfway between what I say and what Lance said, according to the actual thing. In that the link that Twitter did pull down a tweet where the Lincoln Project put like work contact information, not their homes, not their families, but this is how you can get in contact with the law firms where they work, the lawyers. And then they said, make them famous in a tweet. And Twitter said, no, don't fucking do that. That's doxing. But it's not like doxing, like here's where they live. It's here's where they
well,
work.
Rick,
So
Rick, just you,
Twitter
just
told him to pull it down.
okay. Instead of knowing that that fact was kept from you, is it conceivable that it was also kept from you that they did list their homes
No,
and
because
threatened to go after their
I know how
clients?
this fucking shit works because I've seen make them famous shit. No, no,
Okay,
fucking, and
all right, all right.
I read
Well,
several
why?
articles on it, including ones in conservative publications
Okay,
like the
all right,
Washington Examiner.
all right. Well, I've heard lawyers for the Trump campaign say that these lawyers quit because they were threatened, and you've now verified at least part of what I said. So if
Yeah, but I've also unverified the other part of what you
no,
said.
no, but you haven't. You haven't. All you've done is read some accounts that say that Twitter said that these lawyers were called out in public having their
The
what.
article said Twitter pulled down one tweet from these
Yeah,
guys.
yeah, but how do you know? I believe they pulled down more than one, and you have no evidence that they didn't. All you know,
Because the
but Rick,
articles in conservative publications say it
Rick,
was one tweet.
okay, I have another conservative publication, the Trump team, saying that these lawyers were threatened. So
Okay,
I'm
but
sorry, Rick, but
your lawyers, I mean, according to
but
my
why
media,
didn't Rick,
it's
Rick,
you
Rick?
guys are now Giuliani now
I know,
leads
I know,
the
yeah,
legal.
I know. He's a very bad man. I have a question. Why would the Lincoln Project go after Trump's attorneys at all? Why are they doing that, Rick?
Because it's a benighted exercise in legal bullshittery at this
Okay, look,
point.
Rick,
All the
do you
legitimate
Rick,
avenues of
Rick,
challenging the result
Rick,
in.
I understand. I understand because Trump's a bad man and his lawyers are bad men. But you have to understand, I'm very disappointed that you don't understand this. There are ethics in the legal profession. And that is you don't go after people's lawyers. You don't go after them in public. It's a threat. It's a veiled threat, Rick. Let me explain. Both of us have lost big lawsuits, and both of us have bad feelings. At least I do about the lawyers that defeated me.
Yeah,
But
the lawyers
but
against me,
okay,
they were
I get it.
hired
I got
because
it.
they're
I got it.
assholes.
I got it. So, but the point is that in a normal society, you don't go after the lawyers of your opponent. That's considered thuggery. And so you've admitted that Twitter had on it the Lincoln Project, your colleagues going after the lawyers of the president.
No,
So, in my opinion, they should have left his lawyers alone to do their jobs.
well,
It
not,
was not their
hold on.
business.
I'll go after my lawyers. The lawyers that were hired by the Disney Corporation to handle my lawsuit.
Oh
It's a
God.
company named Quinn Emanuel,
Okay,
and they're
God,
hired.
Rick,
They,
Rick, Rick. When they said make them famous, they were threatening them. They wanted some crazy Biden supporter to attack those lawyers.
no, no,
Do
it's
you understand that?
generally no. That
Why
that's not.
didn't they just
I,
why
I
didn't they
spend
just
I
shut
spend
up?
as many hours a day as you spend listening to podcasts. I spend on Twitter, and make them famous does not mean some lunatic shows up to with a weapon or something. Make them
Well,
famous means
they actually said that they were listing the clients of these lawyers so that the clients of their lawyers would affect their businesses.
yeah, to make them aware of what their law firm is representing.
Why are
It,
they doing that, Rick?
well,
I
because in its most severe form, it would be that that I don't it it would make now you can say this is terrible, but and it's I think it's more severe than was intended, but it's in the realm of in when it comes to like Hannity and Tucker Carlson, when people make their advertisers famous, it's with the intention of people of making the people who advertise on those shows fearful that people will stop using their products, so that those
okay.
advertisers quit advertising on Hannity and Carlson. And
Yes,
so
we
you
all
could argue
understand
that
that,
the
Rick.
intent was to make the other clients of these law firms or the lawyers at these law firms fearful that they would lose clients because the clients would be fearful that they'd lose business. All that
I
is within the
understand that.
realm
So
of
so
what make
you
them famous does on Twitter.
okay, well Rick, so you've just admitted that your side are thugs.
I mean, if you call that thuggery, this one tweet was in that realm, and okay, um,
Okay, so when the Trump lawyers quit, it wasn't because Trump has a bad case. It was because Democrat goons went after them and threatened their livelihoods
I mean, you can
for the
argue
rest.
that,
They're
and I
threatening
could
to destroy
argue
their
that
careers.
yeah, that Trump does have a bad case, but
Well,
also
it
the
doesn't
deal
matter,
is
Rick. It doesn't matter. Trump can have a bad case, but you've just admitted before millions of people that Democrat goons threatened the careers of Trump's lawyers. You just admitted that.
what. So we won't have to fight about that because I'll grant you that more or less. We don't have you don't have to hammer it in. You've made your
Okay,
point.
so let me continue then. So one of the things that these lawyers, if they manage to survive Democrat thuggery, are presenting is that thousands of ballots arrived in the middle of the night. There are witnesses that claim that these ballots were empty except for Joe Biden's name. Now, if they can prove that, then Biden could lose hundreds of thousands of votes. If they can prove, because they have them all time clocked, they can see when they went in, I believe, And if they have, say, if they get, say, what the witnesses are claiming is that in an auditorium the size of a convention center, they were able to walk from table to table and see nothing but Biden votes, ballots that were completely empty except for the name Biden. Now, you could say, well, the person just didn't fill out the rest of the form of the ballot. They weren't concerned about the congressional races. But then the other question arises, why are there 100,000 Biden ballots and not a single Trump ballot? Because that's what these witnesses are claiming in signed affidavits and are
Okay,
willing to
so
say
all
in
right. So
court.
when you said I looked up the affidavits thing, and these aren't poll workers. These are poll self-appointed poll watchers.
Well, they're not self-appointed poll watchers. They're appointed by the Republicans and some of the Democrats and one representative of Dominion, the ballot, the
Okay, all right.
company that,
So anyway,
supplied the
so I
polling
mean, the
machines.
result of this now, I think it's called the undervote, where you've got the main event is the president, and then the undervote is everybody underneath that. And if I guess in every election, the undervote is somewhat less. I don't know by how many percent than the presidential vote because
Yeah,
some
I
people,
understand. That's
yeah.
called down
So if
ballot
all this
voting.
is subject. So anyway, all this. I mean, if all this leads to stuff getting recounted and looked at statistically, um, my media says that it's laughable, but if it leads to, I mean, there's been a recount, there's an ongoing recount in Georgia because the difference between the two candidates was less than a half a percent, and the the difference in Pennsylvania is bigger than the mandatory recount level. But even if it leads to a recount, that doesn't seem like a terrible thing to do. Um, and
Okay.
if you when you recount, you can certainly do all these statistical analyses and see if the undercount is a crazy level less than it is, in other other places or other elections. That'll show up. And also, if there's a run of 100,000 Biden votes and no Trump votes,
That's true.
that'll
That's
show
true.
up.
All
So,
right,
I
that'll
mean,
show up. Hopefully, it'll show up.
I
Now,
mean,
another thing that have you heard anything about Dominion ballot machines?
mostly I've seen Trump's tweet about it that 2.5 million votes were flipped on the
Right.
Dominion machines.
So let me explain what Republicans are concerned about because it's the Democrats have skillfully avoided telling you this, okay? During the election, on election night, there were two instances, one in Pennsylvania and one in Michigan. And in both instances, uh, in Michigan, I believe it was 3,000, and I believe it was 6,000 in Pennsylvania. Now, I may have the states and the numbers switched, but I know for certain that there were two that were caught, and at least one of them was in Michigan. And what happened was they called it a computer glitch or a human error. I mentioned it last week, and we went over it, as a matter of fact, because what happened was the several thousand Trump votes were just changed to Biden votes, just just like that. Dominion, the company, says that was human error, um, and the problem is that this was just one line in thousands and thousands of lines of votes, right? So it's one county at 1 minute. They found a glitch of several thousand going from Trump to Biden. And then they found it again. So what the Trump team is saying is that if it happened twice for roughly 10,000 votes, then we have to check all of the counting across the whole United States, starting with the swing states, because it could have happened again and again and again. Right?
So, I
That's
mean, one reason that there's, it used to be that, as you know, that the president was inaugurated on March 20th, right? Instead of January.
January 20th. You
Now
say
the
it was March
president gets
20th?
inaugurated on January 20th.
Okay, I don't know about the March 20th.
Under FDR was the first president where it changed from March to January, because
Okay,
under previous presidents, fucking everything was done by on foot and by horseback, on horseback. And shit just took a long time to get from place
mhm,
to place. But by FDR's time, people were like, no, fucking, we don't need to wait 4.5 months. We can wait 2.5 months. But the reason that they're keeping it at 2.5 months is to give everybody, even when shit went for 37 days in the year 2000, Bush v. Gore, um, there was still time for everything to that needed to happen, except for some shit like briefing the president elect on shit.
okay, we got it.
All
Your
right. So,
point?
but anyway, we've got enough time. If courts rule that we need to take a second look, there's 77 days between election day and inauguration day, and this shit can get looked at. Um,
Okay,
so, um,
but there's more, unless you have something to point out.
well, that just that nobody's buying these arguments, and people
I
who
am.
compare it, like, hold on, you are, I know, but like Ken Starr was on the lawyer who went after Clinton and led to him getting impeached, was saying, well, this is just like, well, we're only doing shit like we were doing stuff like we were doing in Bush v. Gore in 2000. And then the moderator and the other guests were like, fuck no. In Bush v. Gore, Florida was hanging on a gap of 400 votes between Bush and Gore. And what we're looking at in all these swing states are, the closest swing state is 10,000 votes, and recounts never flip more than a few hundred votes. It's statistically just unlikely to the point of being impossible that a recount, but go ahead and fucking recount.
All right, so there's more. Um, Now, as of this moment, the the Dominion, that we have one witness who spoke at length, that worked for the Dominion ballot counting machine company. She was there on the scene, and she claims that Dominion was changing that thousands of ballots were being changed to Biden. She could see it with her own eyes. She has a name, and she'll be appearing in court. Um, she, but beyond that, Giuliani claims, and Sidney Powell, his other attorney, claim that they have two witnesses from the Dominion company, higher ups, who are willing to testify in court that they did change the ballots, that they worked specifically on software. There are two names for the software. One is called Hammer, and the other is called Scorecard. This software was developed by Venezuelan communists. There are two people that work at the Dominion company that are willing to go public. They're higher ups and say that, yeah, we've changed two elections in other countries. That the software that the Dominion company used was specifically designed to change ballots. And what happens is when Dominion is the front of Dominion is a Canadian company, but it was founded by Venezuelans, Venezuelan communists. There's a shell company in between them. There's money from Soros in this company, and actually Nancy Pelosi owns a piece of Dominion. The Trump lawyers are saying, number one, these computers are not these ballot counters are not accurate. They because the security is too weak. Anybody could hack into them and change the votes. So half the states in the union said they weren't good enough. For example, Texas said these machines are too easy to hack. But the Trump lawyers are saying that the Dominion company actually bribed people in various states to take these machines. And they also they claim two witnesses that will say that the software they used can be used and has been used to change elections. And interestingly, the way it works is the same way that those 10,000 ballots I talked about in the very beginning magically changed from Trump to Biden. That's how they do it. They can hack into it from outside, or they can do it when the information goes to Europe, where it's retabulated and sent back. So in other words, it's all sort of processed through Europe. It's processed in Spain. It's processed in Germany. It's not processed in the U.S. It's actually processed in Barcelona. It's an international company. And so at the very least, what the Republicans under Trump are saying is, we've seen that they can change thousands of ballots in an instant. Everyone has admitted that. These things are not under question. Now, what we need to do is we have to find out, are these witnesses from Dominion lying? Are they saying that they can do this and have done that just for the hell of it? Do they deserve a day in court?
Well, they'll get their day in court if
all right. Well, that's all I'm saying, and that's how the election will be changed. Now, I have one last thing to say, I promise, and this is it. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
If all of these things are true, the thousands of dead people, which are really easy to prove. Now, that's easy to prove. There are thousands of dead people because we've got the names and dates, not just their names. I mean, there may be 100 Clark Kents, but there aren't that many Clark Kents that died in 2015. And we've got hundreds of people like that voted, thousands, as a matter of fact. But you combine all of these things, and even if the courts say, well, that's all bullshit, forget it, it's Biden all the way, we're going with Biden. Even if the courts say that we're not impressed with all of the evidence that you're presenting, the state houses, the state legislatures in 5 or 6 of these swing states happen to be Republican. And they can refuse to accept the results of the election in their state. They can say, well, the court may not accept it, but we think there's been too much election fraud, and we're not going to send a slate of Biden delegates to the Electoral College to vote for Biden. We refuse. And that is purely within their rights. They can simply say no. So that's why I would not get too comfortable, Rick, because a lot of bad things can happen to Biden before January the 20th.
All right. So I'm just, instead of in general, now, I don't want to say that objectively a lot of what you said is garbage, because that will lead to, I want to move on from this, but I will say that I personally, and you can say it's because I'm brainwashed, I believe a lot of what you're saying just doesn't hold up because my media has told me so. Now, that doesn't mean you have to iterate what you're saying because we're never going to agree. But I can say, that if what you're saying has merit, we will soon find out, right?
Okay.
Okay. Now our director is he or she is like the best director I've ever worked with. And I haven't always been a guy sitting in a chair in my den. I've worked on I've written for thousands of hours of network TV for all the major networks and some minor networks. And I've won awards and shit and nominated for shit. Anyway, director's fucking excellent and great at directing the show. But because our director is conscientious about this show, he or she has immersed themselves in political information over the nearly 4-year course of this show. And there's a risk in doing this in that you can start to become a little brainwashed. And I would think that our director might be a little brainwashed because our director said, yesterday was the Million MAGA March on Washington, D.C. And our director just said, well, what do you think of that? That this is a major thing, that 1.5 million people showed up for this march. And I followed the march for most of the day, and I looked at the size of the crowd, and then I looked at the Park Service estimates, and the highest number of people, according to the Park Service, and this can be verified by just looking at the size of the crowd and calculating this is a block of 250 people. How many blocks of these people are there? There wasn't 1.5 million. And that indicates to me that our director was reading a source that is not reliable, because according to the Park Service, which often provides estimates for these things, there were 12,000 people who showed up for this fucking thing. A 98.8%, a number that's 98.8% less than the million that they wanted to show up.
I mean, I saw pictures, and there was a hell of a lot more than 12,000 in the pictures I saw. I mean, who am I going to believe, you or my own lying eyes? But
you can
it
show me
looked
the
like
pictures.
massive. Do you remember the people that were marching after George Floyd was killed by the cops?
Yeah, I
That
mean,
they
in a
just
lot of cities.
flooded
Yeah.
the streets. Yeah, it looked like that. That's what I saw when I looked at it.
Did you see a crowd
Um,
that filled the street from end to end for many
yeah,
blocks?
that's what I saw.
Because I didn't see that. I saw a crowd that didn't completely fill the street, that ran for, I
Not
don't know, 2 blocks
only
at most.
not only did I see it, but I actually heard one of the speakers standing there, and you could see that he wasn't talking to a handful of people. He was clearly talking to thousands and thousands of people. I don't know the exact number, but it was a very big event. And the fact that these people would be going out for nothing. I mean, the election is ostensibly over, and now it's going to be handled in the state legislatures and the courts. The fact that they're that fired up that they would have throngs of thousands of people, I'm impressed by that. It may not have been 1.5 million. Maybe it was, I don't know, even 150,000. That would be a hell of a lot of people to show up just to make a point. So, I mean, let me put it to you this way. What you have to concern yourself with is that there are thousands of people signing affidavits that say that they were there when and personally witnessed election fraud. And all of these thousands of affidavits are legal, will be presented under penalty of perjury to the Supreme Court. Moreover, there's one other thing I wanted to mention. I said that the Trump campaign claims that they have two people that worked at Dominion who designed the software, and that's not true. The they claim that they've got the people that designed the software before it was given to Dominion. In other words, there's Dominion and there's the software developers, Scorecard and Hammer, and they apparently worked for communists. They worked for Dominion, according to my guys, it was founded by Cubans and Venezuelan communists, and their whole goal is to interfere with elections, the people they don't like. But people that develop that software are speaking to the Trump campaign. So I just wanted to make that clear because I have to be totally. I
All right,
try to get
well,
my
that
facts straight.
reminds
Oh,
me, I
wait,
got one
wait,
more,
and
which is
and
that
and one other fact correction I want to make. Sean Connery did win Mr. Universe, or he did come in third in the Mr. Universe contest, but it was before it was big. So I said that months ago that he didn't do that, but it was when guys could come in third just by looking athletic. He wasn't these. It was before the steroid era. Anyway,
yeah.
so go ahead with what you're saying.
Okay, one more thing is that the head of the U.S. Cybersecurity Agency, I don't know if it's called Cyber Command, but something like that.
Yeah, and also the there we've got a 3-star Air Force general who was in charge of doing exactly this for our country. His job, he's gone on record. He's been on my news stations. He's retired now, but he says he was there when we started to use the software. And he says he can't say exactly what we did because it would be very nasty if people found out. But he said we used it to change elections. And he said one of the main rules was, he said he was there when they used it. And he said the one thing that he never anticipated is that we would start using it against our own election. And so this general, who is well known, I mean, he is a well respected and successful general, retired, I don't know, 10 years ago. He says that he knows the man that developed the software, and that behind every election since 2012, there has been back and forth between the Republicans and the Democrats to prevent this software from being used. And he claims that this is uh, this is what's happened. Is that it that's why we sent you, the director sent you a mathematician that was
Yeah,
studying
I
the
looked at
vote
that.
count.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, if for our viewers that don't have a chance to see it, at a certain point in the middle of the night, say 3 in the morning, but they've got it down to the minute.
I know you've already said.
Uh, no, 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 but I haven't already said there. This mathematician created a chart, which with two other mathematicians, where you can actually see that here's Biden and Trump, and Biden is lower than Trump, and suddenly Biden shoots up in a way that was unlike any of the other activities during the rest of the day. So, in other words, it didn't happen in a regular manner. It happened it was almost like somebody pressed a switch, and suddenly the Biden votes were rocketing up. They weren't going up and down in a sort of organic way. They rocketed up, and not only did they rocket up, but they went up in every single swing state at the same moment in the middle of the night. And
Yeah,
that
but
can't be
now because
explained.
I looked at your mathematician. You should probably look at like other podcasts, like look at My Favorite Murder. Look at podcasts that aren't just like conservatives, like telling you conservative shit, because you I mean, I looked at analyses of what this guy is claiming, and his math doesn't hold up. But I'm not
Well,
going to
look,
agree with.
I'll tell you. I'll tell you why I believe him. There's a very simple reason. I know that when I went to bed, Biden was behind by 700,000 votes in Pennsylvania and 350,000 votes in Michigan. Now, I know that there were ballots coming in that had not been counted that were supposed to be predominantly Biden. But to me, just from a logical standpoint, I find it hard to believe that Biden got 800,000 votes in the next 24 hours.
He
That
didn't. It took days and days of counting for him to
Mhm.
overcome the. But it was mail-in ballots that weren't allowed to be counted until after the polls. But anyway,
Right, but
what else we got?
even if those mail-in ballots, it doesn't add up. They would have to have been 95% Biden, and I just don't buy it. I mean, when you're talking about math and what do you use your common sense, my common sense tells me that you can't take a lead of 700,000 and then just lose it all of a sudden. And Trump's lead didn't get any votes. It was he got this minuscule amount of votes, and Biden just kept getting hundreds of thousands and hundreds of thousands.
Well,
Why?
it
Just
wasn't
because
all
they
of a
were
sudden,
mail-in
and
votes?
it wasn't all of a sudden. And in this election, unlike any previous election, more than two-thirds of the ballots were cast by mail.
Yeah.
107 million
Okay.
ballots were cast either early or by mail, compared to like 52 million that were cast day of.
I know, but my argument is, what are you telling me that I believe it had to have been something like 95% for Biden in those mail-in ballots. And I'm willing to grant you that it might have been 60-40, but the
Well, it depends on
percentages
where you're
don't,
looking at.
it doesn't
In
make sense
District
to
of
me.
Columbia, for instance, it's like 90. Trump, I mean, Biden won by 80%. It was like
I,
90-10. In
right.
Detroit's not a very Trump friendly city. Detroit, Michigan, again, it was like, 85-14.
No, I understand. But that's another thing. Your lawyer friend last week, he told me that the voting in Wisconsin, in Milwaukee, was flat. And so I looked at that afterwards, and no, there are places in the middle of the inner city that had never voted more than 60% voting rate, and they were voting 95% and Biden, almost all Biden.
Well, if
These
you
are
send
things that
people
make me
vote by
very
mail ballots, you make it easy for them, and you
no, but
convince them that. But like, if you don't
but
believe
but
the argument on
wait,
Twitter, hold on, the
wait,
argument on Twitter.
wait. Just let me finish because it's related to my last point. Trump won more of the black and Hispanic vote than any other Republican. The blacks and Hispanics broke for Trump. So why is it that in Detroit and Milwaukee, the black vote was 95%? It was like dramatically more than blacks normally vote, and it was all for Biden. These things are very peculiar to me.
Or they're okay. They can be peculiar to you,
Mhm.
but anyway, the one thing before is the question is, if you don't trust the vote for president, how do you trust the vote for the undercard
Well,
for senators?
that's the absolute best argument you could make, Rick. Listen to this briefly. I'll keep it brief. It doesn't make any sense that we would have dramatic gains in the House, that the Republicans didn't lose a single incumbent, and now the margin between at the beginning of the night, I believe the Republicans were behind by about 25 seats. Now the Democrats will probably hold on to the majority by 5 seats. So not only did we not lose in the House, we gained tremendously. We just barely missed taking back
How
the
can you
House.
trust that? How
And
do you know that's not the result of vote flipping?
but that's my point. My point is,
How can you
it,
trust those results? I mean,
I can't.
because
I can't. I want anything that you think is unfair. I want us to check. You
okay,
go ahead. But my argument is, I've never met, and none of the studies I've read say that a person would vote for Biden and then vote for a Republican congressman.
I don't know. We spent I don't know 20 minutes talking about the Lincoln Project. The Lincoln Project is Republicans
Yeah,
who they remain Republicans and they may not vote straight Republican anymore because they're pissed off at the whole party, but mostly they're never Trumpers.
I understand that's anecdotal, Rick. You're a smart guy.
Yeah, but
Every
but
poll,
but you say
every
you've
wait,
never
wait,
met
Rick,
anybody who would vote.
Rick, every poll ever done has shown that among Republicans, Trump gets a over 90% approval rate. Over 90%. So if 90% of Republicans are willing to put these massive numbers of congressmen into the Congress, it was a great night for us in the House of Representatives and pretty much in the Senate. We probably will hold the Senate. Then why is it that these 90% favorable to Trump people didn't also vote equally for Trump?
Well, because
Because
mainly
Trump's a bad
because
man. They hate Trump, but they love
mainly
their Republican
because
congressman.
mainly because the plurality of voters are now neither Republican nor Democrat voters. 40% of the electorate, 30% are Democrats, 30% are Republicans, and 40% are independents. And independents could break strongly both ways. They can vote against Trump because they find him loathsome, but they can still vote for Republican senators and representatives.
Yeah, I know that that's possible. Anything is possible. Biden could get all of the votes. That's possible too. But I'm just saying, if I wasn't naive, if I was an intelligent, reasonable person, I would say, huh, that's kind of strange. How is it the Republicans had a landslide in voting in their congressman, but these very same people that voted for their congressman didn't go ahead and check Trump for president? That's
Well,
very strange.
look at, I mean, I don't want to go into
It's never
Trump's
happened,
record,
Rick.
but
Rick, it's never happened. It has never happened. There's never been a time where people voted this much for their congressman who was a Republican, but then didn't vote for the Republican president. It's
okay, but there's, I would
I
say,
don't
I
I
would
don't
argue without
I don't
going
have
into
a study,
specifics.
but in my life I've never seen such a thing.
Okay, but I would argue that there's never been a president like Trump. Now I want to hit one more thing before we
Or
run out of
or
time.
a challenger like Biden.
Okay, okay. So the deal is now fucking we should talk about COVID because every day for the last 3 weeks has set a new record for most cases in a day. Um, it's going up by some days, it breaks the record by 10%. During the peak of people dying from it back in at the beginning of April, we were getting 32,000 new cases a day. Now we set a record of 183 new cases, 1,000 new cases, just a couple on Friday. And this week we'll break 200,000 new cases in a day. And deaths are back up to over 1,400 deaths a day. And
That's not the average though. That's like
well, what
the worst
happens is
in the past two
because of
weeks.
reporting, they things are reported less on the weekend. So on Sunday, today we had 600 reported deaths. On on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday of last week, it was over 1,400 deaths a day. And if you average it all out, we're starting to average, if not last week 1,000 a day, it'll be this week 1,000 a day because deaths are going back up.
Yeah, we all understand that there's been a slight increase
It's
in
not
deaths.
slight.
Well, it's
It's
maybe
three
20%
weeks
over
ago.
three
Three
weeks
weeks
ago.
ago,
Mhm.
The record for most new cases in a day
I'm
was
not talking about
79,000.
cases. No, I'm
Now it's
not talking about cases.
183,000.
Yeah, I
So
don't
it's
care
more
about
than double
cases.
in 3 weeks.
I understand that. I don't care about cases. I care about deaths. And our death rate is definitely higher than it was 3 weeks ago, but it's not even a third of what we had on our worst days in April 8 months ago.
About half.
Okay, so my point is that one, the there's a vaccine which you've carefully avoided to mentioning,
No, I want to talk about the
and
vaccine.
this vaccine was developed because Trump gave this company, Pfizer, $1.5 billion. And he did that so that they wouldn't take a loss. So he didn't have to do anything. He could have just left him go. But way back in March, when you said Trump wasn't doing anything, he went to the Pfizer company and he said, "We're going to give you $1.5 billion so that you can develop a vaccine and nothing bad will happen to you. You won't go broke doing it." And because of Trump's brilliance, you're going to have a vaccine.
All right, so I know you don't want to take a break, but I think we have to take a break because my media has told me that Pfizer, a German company, I believe, developed the vaccine under the auspices of the German government. So we
It
have to
it
check.
has
We have
it
to break
has it
for a
has
second. We have to break for a second to find out whether did Trump really give Pfizer $1.5 billion? Because if
Go
he,
ahead.
okay, so again, it's kind of semi not okay. Here's the deal. Under Operation Warp Speed, which was Trump's program, some companies were paid to for research and development of the vaccine. Pfizer did not get that deal. What Pfizer gets is a guaranteed offer that once they have a vaccine, the U.S. will pay them $1.95 billion for 100 million doses of the vaccine.
Well, there you go. Yeah.
Um,
The the director the director is saying that if the vaccine worked, they would already have been producing it, so we wouldn't have to wait. And because the doses were already ready, that's what Trump wanted. He gave him 1.95 billion
he hasn't given
so
them
that
anything yet,
well, no, he
except to
did. He
guarantee
already
they'll buy the
no,
dose.
no, he already gave it to him
He did not. He fucking did
because
not.
it
I just
it
looked at Forbes
the,
magazine
the
that said that
guarantee
no.
was if it well then they'll get it tomorrow because if it worked, we wanted those doses to already be moving. So do you understand? Don't interrupt me because I know you're excited right now. The whole point of this vaccine is not just to develop the vaccine and say, "Hey, we did this in a lab." The whole point is to be producing. They knew that it worked in July. And so, what the government of the US wanted to guarantee is if they produced millions and millions of doses, the Pfizer would be able to sell them. They'd be able to distribute them in the United States. So, in other words, one of the tenets of Warp Speed, Trump's program, was you develop the doses as you're trying to get approval so that the American people wouldn't have to wait. Okay, so that's why they gave him the money, and that's why Trump
They
gets
didn't give
credit.
him the money. It
Well, what do
came
you think?
from,
Okay, so
here's
do you?
another article. Pfizer's vaccines funding came from Berlin, not Washington.
No, no, no. They got 440 million from Germany. They got 1.5 million, 1.5 billion from the U.S. or were guaranteed that, so that they wouldn't go into debt when they tried to sell when they had it ready. He wanted them to have it ready
All right.
so that we
Okay.
wouldn't have to wait. So I realize you need to shit all over Trump, because you're brainwashed, but it's really unfair. He deliberately got them almost $2 billion so that the vaccine would already be ready in large doses. And it's predicted that we'll have 20 million doses of that vaccine in the United States being administered in December. And that was all because he didn't want them, I'll repeat it, to make the vaccine, go through the trials, say, yes, this works, and then have to make the vaccine in large doses,
All
in
right. So
large
if that's
quantities,
true,
in large
and
quantities. He wanted
okay,
he wanted the quantities ready.
listen, fucking, I have no reason to doubt you except for all the other times when your shit turns out to not be exactly true. But if true, um, that's a pretty big deal. 20 million doses, which would go first to, I assume, people on the front lines, doctors, nurses, anybody else who fucking faces COVID cooties as part of their job. If that's ready at some point in December, that's a big deal. And then if I've, according to Fauci and stuff, we should start seeing large scale rollout for the rest of the population starting in April. And that's, I mean, it's better than later than April. So I mean, so if that's true, then that's a feather in.
Director, the
No,
director
I'm
just
not. It's
director. First of all, director, you got to cut that when somebody walked through. You got to cut. So the director just asked Rick why the media hid that fact from him, that Trump had paid Pfizer to have this stuff ready even before all the trials were over, and had guaranteed them 1.95 billion in sales. Why did your media keep that from you? Because
probably, I don't know, maybe it's
my
because.
point is that it's only been 2 weeks since the election. Wouldn't it have been nice if your media had told you that 2 weeks ago before the election? It's
I know.
actually 12 days since the election. What if they
Yeah.
had revealed it November the 1st, 2 days before the election? Don't you think that would have been nice if the New York Times and CNN had mentioned this? Because maybe Trump would have gotten some votes for what he did.
Maybe. All right.
So you acknowledge that your media lied to you.
Well, when did Pfizer make the
They,
announcement?
they made the announcement yesterday, 11 days after the election.
Okay.
And no, more than yesterday. They made the announcement 7 days after the election, and they knew the whole deal 3 weeks ago. They knew everything 3 weeks ago, at least. They knew
How
that
do you
they'd have
know that?
20. Because if you're going to make the announcement, you know 3 weeks in advance whether you're going to have 20 million doses in the United States by December. It's not a surprise. They
No, no,
knew
but
all along. And what
it's not
happened was
what
they knew
what
before
you're
the
claiming. What I've heard from your side is that Pfizer deliberately waited until after the election to make the announcement.
yes, they
Okay,
did that.
so I mean,
And
so
and and your side, if you had any kind of real journalists, would have known perfectly well that they were coming out with this. They would have known it November the 1st. They didn't have to wait until November the 8th to find this out. That everybody that studies
well, what
the
about your
vaccine.
side? You love your media. You've got all these journalists. Why didn't your side? This would have been a huge October surprise. Here comes the vaccine. There are 20 million. Why didn't your side fucking find it out? Why does it have to be our side that finds it out? If it, I
Well,
mean,
because it's your side has controls the major news publications. We've got one we've got one or two small news outfits. You've got AP, Reuters, the CNN, NBC, CBS. I mean, I don't know exactly why the New York Times and the LA Times chose not to cover Pfizer. No, the
He was
director
saying
has
there was going to be a vaccine out before election day.
the director interjected that Trump has been saying that there was going to be a vaccine before election day. And it turns out, guess what? There was a vaccine 1 week after election day. The company announced it. But Trump has been trying to convince people for months, and your guys just shit on him. He's been saying this, and he's not far off. In fact, 2 weeks ago, you were willing to bet me that there wouldn't be a vaccine. In fact, I didn't take the bet. I should have taken the bet.
Well, you want to
Um,
do the bet still? Do you want to fucking do some kind of bet here?
no, well, here's what the bet was. You were so convinced that there wasn't going to be a vaccine that I said it would be coming out in weeks. And I said that in our show before the election. Turns out I was right. It came out 8 days after the election. So I was correct. It came out
No,
within two
no, the
weeks of
vaccine has to
Thanksgiving.
actually, you're claiming 20 million doses available in December. Do you
Sorry,
want,
I'm just repeating what Pfizer said. Excuse me. I'm
all
just,
right.
that's not credible.
Well, I'm
Geez.
offering you a bet here. If you believe Pfizer, that 20 million doses of vaccine will be available in the United States, available and I guess distributed, because you need special 70 minus 70-degree freezers to keep the vaccine good. That they need to be distributed every if you're going to hold the vaccine so you can give it to people, you need this a freezer that goes to 70 below. So do you believe, if you believe that 20 million doses are going to be in those freezers across America in December, then you should make a bet with me.
So your bet now is that Pfizer's lying. They won't really be able to do it.
Um, yeah, and we can set terms if you want that they don't have to hit, like I'm willing to give you, let's say they're only half right, 10 million. You want to make it 10 million?
How would we verify if there were 10 million doses in these freezers in December?
We'd look at that. You'd look at your sources, I'd look at my sources, and we'd come to a consensus about who's right.
I'll bet you $1.
Okay,
But
I'll bet you
but my
$2. I'll bet you fucking $2.
Okay, but actually, I'm a little weirded out by this. So, you've based your whole campaign against Trump for the past 8 months on him being incompetent. Now they've actually got a vaccine that came out about 8 days after the election was the announcement. The claim is that it's going to be in the United States by December, and your brainwashed mind can't accept it. It's too uncanny for you. Well, I mean, it's unfathomable
Well,
that
wait.
this
So
can really be
here's how
true.
much my mind can't accept it. I've put $2 on the line.
No, but
So
no, but what I'm
if I
saying is,
were,
why is Pfizer lying? Why? So that more Americans can get COVID and vote for Biden?
no, I'm just so no. The deal is that I think Pfizer,
You
the
got to repeat
I
the
okay.
director's
So no,
question.
my thinking is that
Repeat the
Pfizer
director's
isn't
question.
lying, but Pfizer might be. Now, I haven't seen the 20 million number any place. I haven't been looking for it, but I'm thinking that that may be overly optimistic.
Well, actually, here's what happened. The Pfizer company, to repeat the director's question, was clearly biased because they told Biden that they had achieved this. And then after they told Biden, Trump found out about it, and he gave a speech at the White House. And in the speech, he said these people were official partners in Operation Warp Speed. He had gathered all of these companies together months ago. They had been following the trials through July. When in July they knew it worked. He announced that they'd given them apparently almost $2 billion as a guarantee that if they started if they as soon as they knew it worked, they did not have to wait till the end of the trials. They because he wanted a stockpile built up by the time they knew it was ready, the day it was ready. And in that speech, he announced that they would have it in the United States in December. Everybody knows that, but Democrats. Everybody knows
Oh, he
this.
said a lot of shit, but okay. So now we're going to
It's
see
like,
if it happens. It's today's the 15th.
well,
He's got
the Pfizer company.
all right. So basically, there are 46 days left to get these millions of vaccines into these special freezers, or I have to give, if they don't, you have to give me $2.
All right. Is there anything else? I think we beat this to death. Is there anything else? The director interjected that he's already got the military distributing it or readying to distribute it. And yes, part of Operation Warp Speed was the second that they had the quantities built up and official emergency approval from the FDA, they were going to distribute it. And by the way,
And hold
the
on,
average
hold on. I gotta
time,
say, I hope to lose this bet, and if I do, I'm happy to give Trump a little bit of credit for this.
yeah, okay, and that's very lofty of you. But there's one more point I wanted to make, and that is Trump mentioned that from the disease appearing to a vaccine being developed, the average amount of time
Is years.
is is like 6 or 7 years. And through Operation Warp Speed and the genius of these companies and the cooperation of the FDA, secured by Trump, this will have been done in what, 9 months? They started it in March. It's now November, so
Mhm.
9 months. So it's an amazing accomplishment, and as well as the fact that we've developed so many medications. So the and so we have much higher cases. We have record numbers of cases, but we're not going to have record numbers of deaths. I'll make a bet
Oh,
with you on
one
that.
other thing though. One other thing. We should talk about Dr. Scott Atlas, who he's Trump's COVID czar right now. And today, fucking Scott Atlas said, now, Gretchen Whitmer, the governor of Michigan, the one who they foiled a kidnapping attempt against her because she's very active in wanting Michigan to have restrictions on public gatherings. And
She has the most draconian restrictions
all right,
practically
well,
on earth.
today, um, she said she wants 3 weeks of further shutting down in Michigan. Michigan,
Mhm.
like a lot of states, is spiking in cases. And Scott Atlas today said that people need to rise up against this draconian.
Well, I'm going to say this, okay? This isn't against the laws of the United States. Just if anybody on YouTube is listening, I don't think there should be any violence whatsoever. I abhor violence, but I do think every single store, every single business, every single church should open up. Everybody should just ignore these restrictions. We should end the lockdown ourselves. The people of the United States should ignore all of these lockdowns, period. And we
All
should
right.
go
So,
back
what
to our
I would
lives.
say is what I've been tweeting, in fact, is it would fucking suck to have fucking been try to be safe for 9 months and then fucking to go hog wild with a vaccine just weeks or months away. It would suck to be one of the last people to fucking get sick from COVID before people start getting vaccinated. Um,
Rick, one of the things that you've never accepted, and this is demonstrable, it's easy to figure it out. They had draconian lockdowns in places like Italy and England and France. And what happened when they ended the lockdown? The the
the
the
cases went up
virus,
again.
yeah, the virus was still there. The lockdown doesn't do anything but delay it.
Yeah, but but if you can delay until the fucking vaccine is there, then fewer people die from it. And I've been arguing that it doesn't have to be a full-on lockdown. It just has to be fucking what we've learned about what's the way to what Fauci has been saying. I think it's Fauci is, if you're going to be so dead set on having a multi-family Thanksgiving, which he doesn't recommend, where a multi-household Thanksgiving where people from several households that have been isolated gather. If you're going to fucking do that, do it outside. Everybody's going to be cold in much of the US because it's fucking Thanksgiving, but fucking don't do it inside because we've learned that inside is where fucking you get the droplets hanging in the air, not knocked away by air circulation. So it doesn't have to be a lockdown, but there should be some common sense fucking shit based on what we've learned about what works
Well,
and what doesn't.
there's three common sense things that the Democrats refuse to mention. Number one, being outside is a good way to soak up vitamin D. And there are countless studies that show that if you are full of vitamin D, you will survive a case of Wuhan. And if you're extremely depleted, you'll probably die. So, what the governors should be doing is telling people to take vitamin D. The second point is that we've learned that Listerine or 50% hydrogen peroxide, 50% water in a mouthwash will kill over 99% of the virus. And so if people were just using mouthwash before they got together, gargling for a minute, rinsing their mouths, they wouldn't be able to transmit it for, I don't know the exact period of time, but probably a couple hours. I
Well, I
mean,
don't
they
know
could
what you
find,
do though.
wait,
Like,
wait, wait,
let's say
wait.
that
I'm
that's
not,
true.
don't
All right.
interrupt me.
Okay,
Don't
so
interrupt me.
without
Don't
arguing
interrupt me.
about it,
Don't interrupt me. Don't interrupt me. I said there were three things. The third thing is we know that children have powerful immune systems that reduce the viral level to so low that they can't really transmit it. So what we've learned that in every study, Rick, you can shake your head till it falls off. You can't provide a scientific paper that says kids are spitting out this virus and spreading it. Every
I think you
single
can.
study ever done has shown that kids should be allowed to go to school. They're not giving it to the teachers. That you can gargle with Listerine, and that you should be taking vitamin D. Those
Well, hold on,
three
hold on.
things.
So wait. When you say kids, I got two things, and then we should probably wrap it up. When you say kids, what's the cutoff for kids? Because my hometown of Boulder is now shut down because fucking idiots at Boulder High, my old school, have been having parties and are responsible for for relatively big COVID clusters, and idiots at the University of Colorado, which
You said
is
this. They spread it.
it's kind
You
of
told a long
like
story
there are
about it.
like they've been spreading it too, and now Boulder's all fucked up. So how
Okay,
old?
okay.
What's the cutoff age?
I can tell you that if anybody wants to, I'm glad you asked me that question.
Okay.
Anybody that wants to can go to the CDC statistics for age groups. Okay, they divide the number of people that get the virus by age group. You just type in Center for Disease Control, CDC statistics, look up COVID transmission, look at COVID cases, look up age group. Okay, and I would say to be conservative, under the age of 10, hardly anybody in the United States has it. It has died. I saw a number
Yeah, but
of
died
maybe
isn't a
it
measure of
no,
how.
no, no, no. Right, but it's in the teens. Maybe 20 kids under 10 have died,
But
and
that doesn't mean
because
they're not
so
spreading the
yes,
shit.
yes, it does. Yes, it does. Logically, it does. Because the reason they don't die is because the viral load does not increase enough to overwhelm the body's antibodies. And because the
You're making a
antibodies,
lot of assumptions there.
no, listen to me. You die because your antibodies are overwhelmed by the virus, because the numbers of the viral load increases to where the antibodies are outnumbered. It's a numbers game. And the same thing that keeps the child's antibodies snuffing out the virus also keeps the children from spitting out enough of a viral load to infect somebody. If
I
I
I'm not
spit,
I don't
if
buy
I
that,
spit,
but here's what I
if I,
will do.
no, this is science, Rick. You like science. In order for you to catch the Wuhan, you have to catch a certain amount of the virus. There is a cutoff point where you don't have enough in allowed into your body for you to get sick. And that's why kids don't spread it. They snuff it out in their bodies and they don't emit enough into your body to get you sick.
I
So the
don't
schools should be open around the world.
know. I think I don't buy that, but I what I will do,
You
and
don't
then we should
buy that
wrap
because
up.
you're
What I
too
will do is I'll
strong.
research that hydrogen peroxide shit.
The director asks how many kids died from
I
swine
don't know.
flu,
I
and
don't know the fucking. I know that.
I
uh,
know,
I
you
know
don't know, but I
because
know.
I know one number about 12,469 people in America died overall. I don't know how it breaks down. What?
Okay,
What?
what the director is trying to say is that the swine flu under the Obama administration killed kids. It turned out to be that particular flu was very, very dangerous for children, whereas this particular flu is not. There's scientific reasons why, but unfortunately, a lot of children died under the Obama administration because of swine flu, and I don't know the exact number.
No, but 1/20th of the people who've died to date of COVID died of swine flu. But anyway, I'll look up that Listerine shit.
Wait. The
What?
director is answering his own question. He says 13,000 children died of swine flu
Well,
under
that's
Obama.
bullshit because the CDC number of total deaths is 12,469. So
And you
yeah,
know that
kids died, overall
the
people died.
the Obama administration ordered the CDC to stop counting the number of deaths from swine flu.
Yeah, well, I'm not buying the 13,000 number unless it comes from something authoritative. But
Okay,
anyway,
well,
what I've been trying to say is I'm going to look up fucking the Listerine and the hydrogen peroxide. And if you're going to have a stupid Thanksgiving where everybody's inside, then I'm going to say if you're going to be dumb enough to do this, then at least give everybody their own tumbler of fucking Listerine, and between every course, have everybody get up and gargle and spit.
well,
Fucking
it would actually work because the virus is spread through the mouth.
yeah.
It's
So
not spread.
right,
It's
if you're
not
going to
spread
be dumb
through the.
about it, if your parents or grandparents have guilted you in to showing up for fucking Thanksgiving, then at least make sure that everybody has a fucking tumbler of mouth disinfectant.
If you want, I can go grab the paper right now so people could easily look it up themselves. I can grab it. It's in my library. Do you want to hold for 1 minute while I go
Sure, we'll
get
break
it?
for 1 second. Let me say one thing quickly before Lance gives the link. I just had time to try to look up contagiousness of COVID in children, and I found one article that says how contagious are children with COVID, and the headline is short answer, we don't know. So
Well, the
anyway, go
short
ahead.
answer is they just want to frighten you, because Sweden, the government of Sweden has said they haven't found any transmission from
Sweden
children.
also admitted that they fucked up in going for herd immunity. So I don't know about
No,
that.
actually, they didn't. They had
They did. The
5,000 deaths.
government said no, that
No,
was a
no,
bad.
no. They had their death rate was because they had communal rest homes. Their rest homes, instead of being small like Norway and Denmark's, had very high numbers of people. They didn't protect the rest homes well enough, and so it shot through the rest homes, and they got about 6,000 deaths in a country with 10 million people. Now, the Journal of Medical Virology. So you can find this, it's easy. You type in Journal of Medical Virology. The title of the article is Lowering the Transmission and Spread of Human Coronavirus. It was published September the 17th, 2020. Now, I'm going to mention to you, because I did research the other side, there are critics from the Democrats, the New York Times, that say, oh, no, no, this article isn't true, the science is wrong. And their argument is that they did the study on viruses that weren't coronavirus. They did it on, but what the authors admit in their final paragraph is we used a variety of viruses that were very, very similar to coronavirus. In other words, they believe that if the Listerine kills the viruses they used, it would kill coronavirus. And the reason they say that is because it's almost the same virus. It's another COVID type. And they didn't use COVID because right now everybody wants a piece of COVID. And he said it would be very expensive, but they feel confident that it would work against COVID. That's all I
Okay.
have to say. Am I done tonight?
Thanks for watching.
Right. Bye.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Bye.
Hey.